Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. Good morning and namaskar. Welcome to this, the first day of the 3-day online training program on basic training on disaster management, jointly organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, and Institute of Petroleum Safety, Health and Environmental Management, IPSHEM, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Limited, Goa. Myself, Raju Thapa, working in GMR Division NIDM, and I will be the moderator of today's session. As we all know, disasters are the environmental realities of the living world. The International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction was dedicated to promoting solutions to reduce risk from natural hazard. The journey of IDNDR through HFA to SFDRR has witnessed in India a legal and institutional progress, along with evolution of integrated and holistic approach to disaster risk reduction. The paradigm shift from relief to response centric to prevention and mitigation centric approach has percolated both ways, bottom up as well as top down, convergence of which is now in place at various levels and across sectors, which is the call of the time. India is among the most disaster prone area nations. With growing technology and science advances, the possibility of occurrence, time, place, and severity of the strike can be reasonably and in some cases accurately predicted. Every industry, particularly those handling hazardous items in bulk quantities like in petroleum industry, strive to establish the best system and operating procedure for ensuring all the time safety. the inherent risk in the oil well drilling and production, as well as known as the management of the risk, call for systematic planning, adaptation, engineering practices, and positive attitude towards safety and environmental protection. India, being one of the highly disaster vulnerable countries, has always been on its toe to comfort the challenges posed by a number of disasters. A number of national interventions were carried out for disaster management. Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, during his address at the 7th Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk in 2016, outlined 10-point agenda on disaster risk management, in which he provided direction to address all the unprecedented challenges of disasters. The main objective of this 3-day training program is to develop better understanding about disaster risk reduction and resilience, to learn about the relevant policy plan guidelines, to discuss the collaboration and strengthening mechanism for effective implementation of disaster management related activities with a special focus on petroleum sector, fire safety and management in petroleum, disaster response and mock exercises, and local level capacity development. So today's program consists of basically three parts. We are graced by the presence of Sri GVV Sharma, IAS, Member Secretary, NDMA, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, VSM, ED, NIDM, and Sri Atul Garg, Executive Director, Head, IPSHEM, ONGC, in the inaugural session, to enlighten us with their vast knowledge. And this will be followed by the technical session, where Professor Surya Prakash, Head, GMR Division, NIDM, Mr. Anand Rai, Head, Training Division, IPSHEM, ONGC, and Dr. Harjeet Kaur, YP, NIDM, will give an insight of the subject in more detail during their presentation. And after the technical session, participant will be assigned some tasks and group exercises for better understanding of the subject. Now, to call the meeting to order, I will request Professor Surya Prakash, Head, GMR Division, NIDM, and also the chair of this 3-day training program, for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Raju Thapa. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible and visible.
Okay, first of all, I welcome the dignitaries on behalf of NIDM and on my personal behalf for joining us with us in the inaugural program of this 3 days online training program. This program is actually an outcome of the meeting which was chaired by Honorable Prime Minister just about 4 months before today, that was 18th June 2020, after the Bagyan oil blowout and fire, which started from 27th May 2020, which is still remains uncontrolled, and fire numbers from Canada has been called to extinguish that fire, and we had lost a huge amount of oil and gas resources. In view of that, the Prime Minister actually outlined the need for domestic capacities and expertise, as well as resources for disaster management in oil and gas sector. And subsequently, the same was followed up by our National Disaster Management Authority, by Member Secretary Shri GVV Sharma ji, who again followed up with the Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and also written to us, to the Executive Director, NIDM, for follow-up actions, for taking adequate steps to enhance these capacities through training and development of disaster management plans. So we had started these collaborations. 13 PSUs were identified under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and we initiated interactions with them, and we developed some programs. ONGC was one of the first ones to come up with a proposal through their training institute, IPSHEM, Goa, and we developed a 3 days online training program. And before that, we had one-day webinar through which we actually discussed about the pros, cons, opportunities, and challenges in this sector, particularly with respect to disaster management. We found out that there are 3 different levels in which disaster management specifically required, that is from upstream, midstream, and downstream levels. So all these 3 levels have to be dealt differently, because different type of elements are at different types of risks. And similarly, they have different type of projects, both onshore and offshore. So we have been dealing with this and trying to develop their programs. They, in fact, ONGC had their corporate disaster management plan dealing with these issues of upstream, midstream, downstream, as well as onshore and offshore projects from the ONGC side. Besides that, their industries have to have their on-site and off-site plans. As per Disaster Management Act, not only the people from the industries, but also the communities around the industries have to be prepared. And this was well actually established after the Bhopal gas tragedy, which took place on the night and early morning of 1st and 2nd December 1984, where it was realized, although the industrial workers, they knew what to do in case the gas gets released, which is toxic in nature and can affect their lives and health, whereas the communities around that industry were not well aware. So all these issues have been well considered, and we have also considered examples from India and abroad, that several incidents have taken place within our country as well as outside the country, from where we have to take the lessons for implementing them in our future plans. Honorable Prime Minister, after the Sendai framework of disaster risk reduction and climate agreement at Paris COP21, as well as the sustainable development goals, which all the three actually focusing on safer sustainable developments and also focusing on the preparation of disaster management plans, have been well outlined, and the Honorable Prime Minister, who had also given us 10-point agenda. We have considered all of them, where in the Prime Minister's 10-point agenda also, the first point itself was mainstreaming disaster risk reduction and imbibing the principles of disaster management in all developmental sectors. And also point 5 stated the use of technologies, and point 9 was about the lessons learned from the recent disasters. So we have tried to encompass all of them, and discussing with the oil and gas sector industries, we in general call them as hydrocarbon sector industries, where they have multiple products. So not only their products, processes, plants, but also their human resources, their assets, their infrastructure has to be protected, not only from the risk that gets generated from within the industry because of operational works, but also from the natural geographical risks and other anthropogenic risks that the industry may be facing in future. The changing climatic conditions are also posing emerging threats, and we are trying to discuss these plans in view of these emerging disasters, the changing conditions around these industries, and the growth and development. And this is very much important from our vision to enhance our economy and double its GDP. So what we are trying, that an energy sector, hydrocarbon sector is contributing almost 15% to our GDP. And if we are able to protect and save and reduce the risk to this sector, we will be able to do well. So with these words, I welcome Shri GVV Sharma ji, Member Secretary, National Disaster Management Authority, Executive Director, Major General M.K. Bindal ji, and Executive Director Shri Atul Garg ji, as well as all other dignitaries and speakers for this 3 days online program. Thank you very much. And once again, I wish all the best for the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your opening address. Now, moving ahead, I will request Sri Atul Garg, Executive Director Head, IPSHEM ONGC Goa, to take on the stage for his special address. Over to you, sir. Atul sir?
Yes, good morning.
Yes. Yes, sir. Now you are audible, sir.
Okay, thank you. A very good morning to one and all. Respected Shri NDMA and Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal ji, Executive Director and NIDM, Professor Surya Prakash ji, Head GMR Division, and moderator of today, Mr. Raju Thapaji, and all my ONGC colleagues, Dr. UK Chakravarti, Mr. Anand Ray, and most important, all the participants. It is my privilege to speak on this occasion of this 3-day course of disaster management schedule. As rightly said by Shri Surya Prakash ji, control sector is divided into 3 sectors: upstream, midstream, and downstream. ONGC is working in downstream. Upstream. Here, in any disaster, any small fire very quickly turns into a major disaster. Wagner fire we have seen earlier in Hazira, one pipeline gas leak was there. It was a disaster. In Uran, we lost 1 life. And way back in 2005, our BHN offshore platform caught fire. So all the fires in oil sector are a major disaster. Jaipur fire, we also know it. But the only advantage is that in upstream, the loss of life is not much there, because our operations are either in the jungle, field, or in the offshore, mainly away from the habitats. But the loss to the national exchequer is much more. Argan oil well disaster. The whole oil reservoir underneath the earth has been burned. Then only it could be doused. Similarly, in Jaipur oil terminal fire in 2009, the whole oil terminal, the lakhs of liter of kerosene, lakhs of liter of petrol got burned in 21 days. Then only it could douse. So the material loss is always there, but human loss is not that much. So here, with the help of NIDM, National Disaster Management Authority, we want to develop to reduce the loss of material and machine also as well. Within ONGC, people are trained to tackle the disasters. But when it comes to the public, we have to work interactively together with the disaster authorities. For this course, I think all the participants, I am happy to see there are more than 200 participants attending this disaster management course. It will be very helpful for all the people, and mutually we will learn many things. If after such type of disaster management, in a long-term basis, I want, if any practical training is also required, IPSHEM Goa is ready to impart that practical training also. We have a more than 25 firefighting training simulators based at IPSHEM Goa, where we can douse all the type of fire related to the oil sector. So I request all the authorities first to have a visit to our IPSHEM Goa, to have a feel, then the participants can attend a practical session also. We are developing virtual reality technology also. In the virtual reality, we need not to fight the actual fire. We can do it that way. So with this, I wish all the best to this 3D training course, and thank you all the authorities of NDMA and NIDM, and the moreover Member Secretary Sri G.V. Sharma ji. Thank you, all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your address, and your point is well taken, sir. And for now, moving ahead, I will request Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Vishesh Seva Medal, Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, for his keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Raju Thapa. First of all, heartiest welcome to all participants. Now we have more than 400. And a special welcome to Executive Director of IPSHEM Goa, and a very special welcome to the GVV Sharma ji, Member Secretary NDMA. This whole program today, I must tell everyone, is on the initiative of Mr. GVV Sharma ji, who took it upon himself to write to the petroleum industry that they need to carry out trainings in the field of disaster management, and NIDM needs to be contacted for that, based on which, like Professor Surya Prakash explained, how we went about the whole thing and identified the industries, and then we have started training with them. Today it is with ONGC, with the complete ONGC staff from all over the country. The plan was to attend to all of them, and hence the number is increasing as we are speaking. So this whole program is aimed at sensitizing and first of all sensitizing everyone that need to be avoided and how we can avoid the disasters, because fire is a very small element of the disaster in a oil and petroleum gas industry. The major disaster that it causes due to environmental pollution, due to environmental damage, and to the effect of that environmental pollution to the habitat around or to the flora and fauna around is devastating. We have seen oil spill in the ocean, how it creates chaos, how the marine life is disrupted and they wash up on the shores dead for miles away. They're dead, and there's a huge exercise being taken. The actual cost of loss is much less, and the cost of uh, putting out that danger or to remove that risk, like putting out the fire or removing the oil spill, is phenomenal. It is, I think, more than 20 to 30 times the cost of the actual oil lost during that fire. So material loss is also there. Then future cost to fight the disaster is much, much more. So all this points to one thing, that we must prepare. Today, we are fortunate that the industry is facing a near zero accident rate, keeping in view the number of outlets that they are maintaining, whether it be a refinery, whether it be a petrol pump, whether it be a storage facility, whether it be a transportation facility. If you count all of them, it will come in lakhs. When it comes in lakhs, so the accident rate is very, very low. So for that, the industry needs to be complimented and commended upon, that already they have a very robust system in place to check to carry out the checks and balances and ensure near zero accident rate. But what matters more is the near misses, which go unnoticed, because any crisis averted doesn't get documented. So the lessons learned and case studies that are being made for such disasters, averted disasters which have been averted, they need to be stressed upon, because they are the lessons learned can be learned from actually when the case has been averted, because then you know what went wrong and what could have gone wrong and how it was avoided, rather than something which has already got burned and then we are trying to find probable causes. Whereas in one case we have the actual cause, we have the actual way it can be it tackled, and hence this learned case studies method should include the near misses more than the actual should include the near misses to a very large extent, because the lessons that will be brought out will be much more practical in nature. So in this whole program of 3 days, we are not going to talk about zero accidents or near misses. We are going to talk about what is disaster management, first of all, the institutional framework, and thereafter, where does ONGC fit in, and how ONGC can implement the disaster management plan, make the disaster management plan for whichever locality they are, for whichever installation they are in, and thereafter we will graduate to making a disaster management plan for the complete ministry in future. So with this, I once again welcome all the participants, and I'm thankful to Mr. GVV Sharma ji, Member Secretary, NDMA, for initiating this whole process, and also being here for the pilot program which we are going to conduct with the oil industry in future. So with this, I thank you everyone, and over to you, Raju Thapa.
Thank you very much, sir, for your opening keynote address. Now I am very humbled to request Sri GVV Sharma, Member Secretary, National Disaster Management Authority, Ministry of Home Affairs, for his address to encourage and with his vast knowledge and experience. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, Professor Surya Prakash, Mr. Garg, Major General Bindal, Executive Director, NIDM, all the dignitaries and participants. I would like to begin by stating that all of you, being professionals working in the field of petroleum and natural gas and other chemicals, are aware of the legal requirements. As you know, for the midstream and downstream industries, we have the Emergency Response and Disaster Management Plan Regulation of 2010. We have several instructions given from time to time by PNGRB, and we have Manufacture, Storage and Import of Hazardous Chemical Rules of 1989 with further amendments, and we have other related legal stipulations, like for example, ammonium nitrate rules. Now, I would like to briefly mention that the phrase disaster management plan, as it is mentioned in the ER and DM plan regulation of 2010, is slightly different from the phrase disaster management plan as defined under the Disaster Management Act of 2005. As you know, the 2005 Disaster Management Act was enacted by Parliament, and where the disaster management plan refers to a holistic plan which is to be prepared by each ministry, covering all aspects of disaster management, including prevention, mitigation, capacity building, mock drills, rehearsals, then at the time of actual response, what is the work to be done, and then post-disaster reconstruction and recovery and building back better, etc. So therefore, in such holistic sense, all industries are included, including the upstream industry. So therefore, there is a common misnomer that upstream industries are not covered under the ER and DM plan regulation 2010. It is partially correct, because directly under that particular regulation, they are not covered. But under the whole DM Act of 2005, which is all encompassing and overarching, the legal responsibility is definitely there. Therefore, it is incumbent that every single ministry, and in particular Petroleum and Natural Gas Ministry, is required to prepare a holistic disaster management plan as required under the DM Act, and then and while preparing it, they have to keep in view the requirements of the National Disaster Management Plan 2019, which is available in the website of the NDMA, and it is a public document. We have also communicated this to all the ministries. Therefore, what is important is, in order to realize the vision which is expressed by the Honorable Prime Minister in the agenda point number 1 and agenda point number 5 of the 10-point agenda, it is important that all of us have to play our respective roles, because the statement, the vision, has to be translated into action. And in this context, I am very happy to note that a very major potential oil spill disaster which could have happened due to the New Diamond vessel was averted by very timely and very coordinated action on part of the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, the Ministry of External Affairs, as well as the Indian Coast Guard. So that was one example where, by synergetic action of all the stakeholders, a very major potential disaster of oil spill was very successfully averted and completely resolved. So this is an example of how best we should promote stakeholder coordination in a meaningful manner, so that timely action can be taken by the concerned agencies. I would also like to mention that when we had the gas and oil leak in Tinsukia district in Bagjan, the blowout happened, and finally the blowout has been capped, the fire has been doused, but it took more than 80 days. What is important is, how do we promote local skills, local technology, local infrastructure, and also enhance the capability at the local level. In these days of Atmanirbhar Bharat, it is extremely important that we have to identify the gap in the local skill sets. And at the university level, either in Dibrugarh University or Jorhat University or anywhere else, how to enhance the domestic competencies, both in terms of technology, in terms of equipment and infrastructure, as well as in terms of human resources by way of upgradation of their skills. It is a highly technical matter, we understand. It is cutting edge technology, we understand. But why India cannot access the technology? So we must make efforts, and on that, I would request for concerted action by all of you together, because you are experts in the field, by this concerted action and clear deliberations for the coming 3 days. It should be possible to come out with a roadmap clearly indicating how best we enhance our overall India's preparedness in this field, which is highly technical. And I conclude by stating that the very important initiative has recently been taken by the National Institute of Disaster Management by ensuring that the district level database through India Disaster Resource Network has been updated, and Petroleum and Natural Gas Ministry has also helped. All their field units have added that data. Now the data is almost uploaded for every district in the country, but that data should be utilized. At the time of disaster, the authorities should be able to know which industry, which location can offer which type of equipment for what particular disaster. So hazard-wise identification of the resources and their operational deployment will be very, very important, that the IDRN framework will also be utilized in actual time of disaster response. So this is also a point for reflection in this 3-day seminar. And I would once again thank all of you and NIDM in particular for having given me this opportunity, and my best wishes for active participation by each one of you. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir, for your inaugural address and sparing your precious time to encourage this gathering. Now I will request Dr. Harjeet Kaur, YP GMR Division, NIDM, for her felicitation address. Over to you, ma'am.
A very good morning. First of all, I would like to express my utmost gratitude to Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, VSM Executive Director NIDM, and Shri Atul Garg, ED Head, IPSHEM ONGC, for supporting the collaboration of IPSHEM ONGC India promoting capacity development in hydrocarbon sector. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to Shri GVB Sharma, IAS Member Secretary NDMA, for sparing his precious time and enlightening the event with his word of wisdom. I must also congratulate Dr. Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division NIDM, for coordinating and chairing this 3-day training program on disaster management in hydrocarbon sector. For the upcoming 2 days, we have distinguished speakers who will share and exchange knowledge, information, experience, innovation, and ideas on the disaster management during emergencies and disaster situations for reducing the risk in hydrocarbon sector and enhancing the resilience amongst the affected stakeholders. Taking forward the PM 10-point agenda for achievement of targets set under Sendai framework for DRR, the plan has also focused on achieving a coherence with other international agreements such as Sustainable Development Goals and Paris Agreement on Climate Change. The period of these agreements coincide with SFDRR, and this coherence will result in ensuring sustainable and climate resilient development that will ultimately reduce disaster risk. It is imperative to mainstream disaster management in hydrocarbon sector and to adopt an inclusive approaches toward risk reduction to ensure the sustainability of development initiative and to widen its reach to cover every citizen. I hope all the participants will have some takeaway point from the training program. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Raju Thapa.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that. And we will have you back in our technical session also. So with that, we have come to the end of inaugural session. Now, moving on to the technical session, we have, as mentioned by Dr. Harjeet Kaur, level resource person who will share their knowledge and wisdom in this in the technical session. So during the technical session, there will be presentation, and once all the presentation are over, we will have question answer session at the end of each presentation. So your active participation is very important, and kindly use the question and answer chat box window to raise your question, or you can use the comment box also. So for our first presentation, we have with us Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division NIDM, who will be talking about the DM Act with roles and responsibilities of the ministries, department, agencies. Professor Surya Prakash is the head of Geometeorological Risk Management Division and is in charge of 3 specialized centers. He was associated with very prestigious institutions such as CBRI, IIT Roorkee, JNU, Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, FRI, VIT, etc. He has also published several national and international research publications, books, articles, etc. in some of the highly impact factor journals. With these words, I would like to pass on the stage to Professor Surya Prakash. Over to you, sir. Hello, Surya, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir.
I'm not unmuted. Okay, now can you? Am I audible?
You are audible, sir.
Okay, okay. Let me share my screen. My PPT is visible?
Starting to share content. So maybe just it will take 1 minute, 1 second, sir.
Okay, okay. So while the PPT appears, let me first again welcome to the technical session all the participants, dignitaries and speakers of this online program. And
yes, sir,
this particular PPT, actually, we are trying to emphasize what Shri GBV Sharma ji told in the inaugural lecture, that we have certain legal provisions for enactment of emergency response and disaster management through the Industrial Acts as well as the Disaster Management Act and the Environmental Management Act. That what we will discuss. And as ED-NIDM also said, that we have an institutional mechanism also for the disaster management. So we will be discussing in brief about these issues. But before we discuss these issues, let me tell that whether it is oil and gas industry or any other industry or sector, all can get affected by certain disasters which are of biological nature, radiological or nuclear nature. Currently, we are facing pandemics, COVID-19 situation, and our Honorable Prime Minister had issued certain guidelines where we are talking about Jan Andolan for appropriate behavior in COVID-19 situation के सही तरीके से मास्क पहनना है जरूरी, बार बार अपना हाथ और मुंह धोएं, साफ रखें और 2 गज की दूरी बनाए रखें. 2 गज की दूरी है बहुत जरूरी. All this we have to follow till we don't find a medicine or a vaccine. Okay. So Prime Minister has said, जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं. So we start with that let's wear your masks properly, follow face and hand hygiene, and keep social distancing of about 2 meters, 6 feet. That is 6 feet. So no carelessness until there is a cure. That's the first thing I would like to include in my PowerPoint. The second is that besides the, as Garg Saab has said, that although there are less fatalities, but more economic losses in the oil and gas sector because of disaster situations. And this is very much important, keeping in view our consumption of oil and gas. Global level, we are the 3rd largest consumers after USA and China. So we have to be very careful in this. And we are the fourth largest importer of LNGs. So our the compound growth rate is also increasing to a good levels. So we have to look into this, that our dependency on oil and gas sector imports should be reduced, and we should be able to protect and develop on our own resources well. If you look into the refineries, I got a map of 2017 where 23 refineries have been located in different parts of our country. And this is the length of the pipelines, more than 16,770 gas pipe kilometer long gas pipelines, and these are likely to increase. Now our dependency on gas is increasing day by day. So we are using CNG, PNG and all LNGs. So we have to actually look into this, that whether it is pipelines or the oil wells or the refineries or our fuel stations, all have to be made safe from disaster management perspective, keeping in view their wide distribution and also proneness and vulnerability to the risks from natural hazards. What kind of risk? I'm just showing you one of the slides where I'm showing you 4 different maps in the 4 corners of the slide. They are pertaining to earthquakes, wind hazards, landslides, and floods, which are very common in different parts of our country. There are many other kind of disasters as well. So if you have a map, local map of hazards, which can delineate the areas which are affected by a specific hazard, and also if you prepare your own map of your assets, infrastructure and services, I have just kept one of the map of gas infrastructure in the center, and you overlay over each other, you will find which are the hazards which can affect your pipelines, your industry, your whether it is oil wells or your refinery or pipeline or fuel stations or anything else. So we have to look into that. Secondly, it may not be a single hazard by which you will be affected, or your assets may be affected, or your elements may be affected. It will be a multi-hazard. As it is said that no problem comes alone, it brings its near and dear ones also. So with the earthquake, you may have the landslides, liquefaction, or maybe floods. So it may be accumulative. As you remember, the tsunami in Japan brought triple disaster. Similarly, in our country also, it has happened several times where an earthquake led to landslides, landslide led to blockade of river systems and leading to flash floods, and sometimes breaching of the dams leading to dam bursts. So number of problems can lead to different type of issues and challenges. Now, what are the opportunities? If these are the challenges, threats, then where are the opportunities? Now, if you look into the resource distribution, they are very much distributed across the country in different sedimentary basins where we normally find these hydrocarbon resources. So these sedimentary basins are also actually can be looked at from the disaster management perspective. So which kind, during exploration and exploitation, what kind of hazards we may face and what kind of safety measures can we take. So we can always develop safety and protective systems for exploration and exploitation, keeping in mind the existing conditions within any area. So we will talk about that even in the initial planning stages, we can plan with respect to hazards that exist over a given area or that are likely to affect an area. Okay. Now, how do we learn from the past instances? Past and present are key to the future. There is a principle in geomorphology. The first principle is past is key to the present. That means whatever has happened in the past is likely to happen in present, or whatever is happening today is likely to repeat in future. But this is not completely true. As was said by our honorable distinguished speaker, Dr. P.K. Mishra-ji, during his address recently during the last week at IIT Roorkee, that this principle is not completely true in disaster management because our situations are changing. Conditions governing the occurrence of a particular disasters are varying. So, therefore, we have to actually look into the changing conditions and the variabilities as well while assessing the disaster situations. So, we will, while consider the past events, but also look into the changing technological, geographical, atmospheric, and anthropogenic activities as well. Just some of the examples from India, where Krishna Godavari basin had this uncontrolled flow of gas in the Krishna Godavari basin, where $4 million US dollar equipments were destroyed, and we lost a huge amount of gas due to leakage, due to flow of this gas, around 34,000 US dollar per day. So besides that, natural crops and land was also lost, beside the 470 hectares of coconut trees by the rising flame. So these are the kind of incidents and their impacts that we have faced in the past. Now I come to another incident of Indian Oil Corporation, where on 29th October, you remember, this was incident of 2009, but on the same day, 29th October, 1999 Odisha super cyclone had taken place in Odisha, which had killed more than 10,000 people. So this incident actually happened, which was mentioned by Shri Atul Garg ji also in Jaipur in the Indian Oil Corporation oil depot, where due to leakage in pipeline, there was a fire and 12 people got killed. Our expert speakers from the sector will inform why these casualties actually happened and what went wrong and what should have actually been done to avert those casualties at least. So first target in our Sandai framework is averting the casualties from the disaster situations. So this is where we will again focus. Then the products worth $65 million were lost. So huge amounts of resource and also the lives have been lost, and the environmental impact as mentioned by NIDM Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal ji, that the oil and gas sector, when during spillage, fire and blowouts, explosions, etc., also affect our local environment and biodiversities, and that's also beyond acceptable limits. So therefore we have to actually address this problem so that they remain within acceptable and tolerable limits. Just during this year, if I take the examples, I'm just citing 4 incidents. Bhagyan we have just spoken during the inaugural. I'll not repeat, but there was a vessel, maintenance vessel in Vizag, where in May 2020, there was a fire incident. Then another incident which happened in Budi Deen River in Guwahati, a fire took place in February 2020. And Hajira plant, which was also mentioned during inaugural as well in Gujarat in September 2020. So repeated incidents, why these incidents are happening? Why are we not able to avert them? Where are we missing? There is a Czechoslovakian proverb which says, misfortunes enter when window is left open to them. Where is that window we are leaving open? What are the mistakes or uncertainties left behind? So sometimes we say that disasters, they can be termed as uncertainties and unknown things which remain there and get ignored, and we have to bear their impacts later on. Now I fall back upon the operational risk and the geographical risk from the natural hazards. I'm just talking only from natural hazards. There can be other hazards as well. Sorry. So I call back to an earthquake which happened in Japan in 1995, 17th January, where the Japanese, although they were well prepared in terms of earthquake resistant structures, they had constructed timber buildings. But what happened that these timber buildings actually got fire, and that fire was actually triggered by gas leakage from the pipelines during the earthquake. So the earthquake did not kill as many people as were killed by that fire, which was triggered by the gas leakage from the pipelines during the earthquake. And this actually burnt those timber buildings and people along with them. Around 5,000 people got killed in that incident, and around 106 in trunk pipes with medium pressure, they were actually leakages were reported. And there were many other under road pavement pipelines which also leaked. So we have to actually consider that if an earthquake happen, what kind of disaster resistant technologies and pipelines should be laid out so that they do not get ruptured or the gas doesn't leak out. Even if it leaks out, then it can be sealed and controlled timely before its devastating effects can occur. So this actually takes a lot of time. You know, in oil and gas being very highly inflammable materials, they catch fire at a very fast rate. Within 3 minutes, the temperature rises to an extent that can burn people very quickly. So unlike other materials where a fire takes place, it doesn't spread very fast, propagation rate is very low, and the rate of rise of temperature also is very low in some other materials compared to hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons being very inflammable and fuel materials, they catch fire very quickly, and the rate of propagation spread as well as the rise of temperature is also very fast. So it doesn't give us enough time to respond. So we have to, that's why, be well prepared, and preparedness before time is very much required. So we have to have alert, alarm, early warning systems, and also provisions for avoiding those fires and blowouts. Then another incident where the reporting was done, documentation was done after the Kobe fire by the Japanese government. And they reported that emergency plans should be well developed. We do have emergency risk and disaster management plans. But are they sufficient? Do they look into all those issues which are required under the Disaster Management Act as well? So as GVV Sharma said, that it is an overarching document which is much more wider and covers much more issues than what our environment law and industries laws cover, or transport laws cover for the hazardous elements. So we have to look into that, and formal and specific communication procedures have to be well established between the gas. You can take care of your own sector. You know well your own sector and your resources, your assets, your infrastructure, and your people. What about other sectors? You cannot work without power. And if there is no power and there is no communication, which is not just dependent on your own sector, it's dependent on other sectors. So in order to be efficient, we have to develop linkages with other sectors also and ensure a good coordination and communication between gas, electrical, water pipe supplies, and departmental personnel. So that's why we say your corporate disaster management plan has to be actually well integrated with our disaster management plan at the district levels, at the local levels, at the state levels, and at the national levels. So those integrations from local levels to the national levels is very much required. No doubt, as the Honorable Prime Minister says, vocal for the local. Most of the implementation has to take place at the local levels. Local capacity is very much required. But the linkage with the national is equally important. So Vocal for the local, for local should go global. That is where we are looking for. So this is, I'll just briefly say, because there are other speakers, and restoration. We're talking about resilience also. So resilience is nothing but your own capacities, not only to resist, but to respond, but also to recover as quickly as possible to the situation that existed before the disaster occurred. So that kind of things you have to look into. Now let's learn from other disasters which took place in other countries. Our ONGC has a Videsh unit also, and it has many ventures across the countries, across the globe. So you are working in different countries, and our concern of our human resources, infrastructure, assets is not only within the country but across the countries also. So we have to take care and learn from there as well, and also implement that. Just citing one of the example from Ecuador, where on 31st May 2013, the Trans-Ecuadorian oil pipeline got ruptured because of a landslide. Now you see, we had an impact from earthquake. We had impacts you can see in day-to-day lives from the floods, and we have impact from the landslides. Landslides can happen in the hills. Landslide can happen in the offshore areas, submarine landslides and coastal landslides, right? Or if vertical cuttings are there, even underground landslides are possible. So their environmental impacts and transboundary contaminations of the water bodies also to be looked into. Then cyclones, I told you about the 29th September 1999 Odisha super cyclone, but these are continuous phenomena. And with the changing climatic conditions, their frequencies and the severities are increasing, and distribution also changing over space and time. So we have to learn from the impacts of these cyclones, which we are termed as hurricanes in the American continent. In the USA, Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita. Katrina happened on 29th August, and Hurricane Rita happened on 24th September. And it actually damaged 457 pipelines and destroyed around 113 offshore drilling platforms. Now, while installing, while erecting and creating protective systems, are we taking care of the impacts of these kind of cyclones, which can happen in the coastal areas? So coastal areas are very much prone to super cyclones as well. And around 750,000 gallons of petroleum products spilled over from these offshore platforms, rigs and pipelines, which is again not only a loss of resource, but also environment impact and impacts on the biodiversities. Another impact of earthquake and tsunami, I said that there are cascading impacts. Earthquake leading to landslide, earthquake in the coast, undersea areas can lead to tsunami also. We had already suffered on 26th December 2004, Indian Ocean tsunami. And I'm citing you another example from 1964 tsunami. In North America, on the west coast of Alaska, where the Standard Oil of California and Union Oil tanks, they got exploded and went for about 2 weeks. So even the tsunami, which generates high sea waves, and also undersea ruptures, subsidences and movements of the bedrocks, can also create problems to our offshore projects. Besides the terrestrial earthquakes, which I already discussed in the Kobe earthquake incident. I am citing you only 1 or 2 cases just to apprise you. There are several other cases which we can mention. So we have to actually document all of them so that we should learn from each of them and pave our way for road ahead. As was mentioned by Shri G.V. Sharma ji, we have to actually design our road ahead in consideration with the past incidents, lessons learned, and the emerging threats These are all considerations to be taken into account. And I just mentioned few more earthquakes, floods, and landslides, and climate change bringing extreme weather events. So I'll not go into more details of this slide, just to show whether it is Japan, Turkey, USA, or India, or any other territory, all have the possibility and potentials for the natural hazards. And what Shri GVB Sharma said, these are some of those acts. I've just listed them out, that we have the Factories Act 1948, which is also guiding us and legally mandatory for us to follow certain principles for disaster risk reduction. Then we have Manufacture, Storage and Import of Hazardous Chemical Rules, 1989. Then you have Chemical Accidents Rules for Emergency Planning, Preparedness and Response, 1996. You have National Disaster Management Guidelines, which were issued by National Disaster Management Authority for chemical disasters in 2007. We have a national policy on disaster management, which was released on 22nd October 2009. We have Emergency Response and Disaster Management Plan 2010, as was mentioned by Shri GVB Sharma ji. Then we have, as was told by Shri GVB Sharma ji also, National Disaster Management Plan as per Disaster Management Act, which was first formulated in 2016 and released by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and revised in 2019 according to Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. So you can go through these acts and rules for more details and then follow them. Now, I'll just emphasize few things about Disaster Management Act 2005, which was notified on 23rd December, signed by the Honorable President on 23rd December 2005. Section 36 and 37 actually envisages responsibilities of the ministry or the departments of the Government of India and the state governments, where it mentions to allocate funds for prevention of disaster mitigation, capacity building and preparedness. The 15th Finance Commission actually has outlined and given provisions for disaster response, for disaster mitigation, as well as for capacity building on disaster management. So these funds are available now after the 15th Finance Commission. To make provisions for financing activities specified in their DM plan. Now each industry, each ministry, during their budget preparations can prepare their DM activities and allocate budgets for it. So that has also to be looked into, and this is also mentioned in the point 3, where it says to make fund provision in the annual budget in the activities. So specific budgets can be allocated. Your corporate social responsibilities funds can also be utilized for disaster risk reduction activities and programs. To integrate disaster risk reduction into developmental plans, it envisages mainstreaming, as is pointed out in the Prime Minister's 10-point agenda as first point, integration and mainstreaming of DRR into development. So you have to look into this for prevention, mitigation, and preparedness, as well as efficient response. The other mandates for this are, as per policy, is to build a safe and disaster resilient country. We are going for development, but development should not become devastation. It should be disaster resilient, safe, sustainable, and climate resilient. So therefore, we have to have a holistic, proactive, and multi-disaster oriented, technological driven strategy, as is pointed out in Agenda 5, okay, of the Prime Minister, where it focuses on enhancing the use of state-of-art technologies, rather than going ad hoc, piecemeal, and reactive approach. And further, there was emphasis on education. The National Education Policy 2020 actually also talks about multidisciplinary approach, where we have to develop a culture of prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and response. And the Disaster Management Act, as well as the policy, has also defined the disaster management process, and which says that it doesn't get triggered with the occurrence of any disaster, but has to be a continuous proactive mode in nature. Then this is a copy of the disaster management plan. You can find a copy on ndma.gov.in and also at NIDM website from nidm.gov.in. The plan actually provides the framework and directions to all the government agencies. It has defined the responsibilities for assessment of disaster risks, for also early warning, mitigation, as well as the response to disaster situations. And it has also defined the roles and responsibilities. So these things you can see, and this is a dynamic document which will be revised and updated on periodical basis depending on the changes. And this is a time when the Honorable Prime Minister has actually addressed the 7th Asia Ministerial Conference, which was the first post-Sendai Asia Ministerial Conference, where the first point on all development sectors must imbibe the principles of disaster management was mentioned and focus on safety and preparedness. Some of the issues which Honorable Prime Minister again brought out on 18th June 2020 was the incident of the 27th May 2020, which were in well number 5 in Bagyan oil field in the Tinsukia district of Assam actually had the blowout and the fire, where 2 casualties had happened and around 1,610 local families to be shifted with around 3,000 members. So leaked gases caused problems to the fields also. And after the meeting, the Prime Minister had actually talked about these enhancing the capacities, and NDMA followed up, issued the letter to MOPNG. MOPNG issued to all the PSUs, where the directions were given to include disaster management in their training curriculums. Now this is being followed up by NIDM also, and NIDM is assisting all these PSUs under Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas to include disaster management in their training programs, and also facilitating them in preparation of their DM plans as per the 3 international agreements which took place in 2015, and also the 10-point agenda of the Honorable Prime Minister. So what we look forward is development of disaster management plan in accordance with our NDMP, as pointed out by Honorable Member Secretary of NDMA, mainstreaming disaster risk reduction and resilience strategies in all development sector activities of all sectors, site-specific strategies for disaster preparedness, prevention and mitigation, enhancing the capacity of all stakeholders engaged in hydrocarbon sector, because I'm talking presently to that particular specific sector, and practice disaster prevention during normal periods. Because if we want to actually respond to disaster situations or crisis efficiently, we have to practice during routine times so that we can respond well. So mock drills, exercises are very much important. With these words, I thank you all, and I close down my PowerPoint here, and I'll stop sharing the PPT here. And Raju, if I have any questions, I will be happy to address.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation and citing some of the major incidents that took place both at national and international level. Sir, you have rightly mentioned that oil and gas sector is among the 8 core industries in India and play a very major role in influencing decision making for all other important sections of the economy. And sir also has rightly pointed out various way forwards. Sir, we have few questions from the participants, sir. And so the first question is, sir, like, sir, are you there?
I'm there,
Yes,
Raju.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the first question is, sir, what role community play in reducing the impact of disaster in petroleum sector?
It's a, I think, very good question. And in fact, why we are planning offsite disaster management plan in the industries is involving the communities. Communities actually are the ones who are actually not well aware of the impacts of the industries around them, the kind of gases or kind of resources that are being used, or operations being carried out within the industry. So if these communities are actually educated and made aware about the no adverse impacts of the any kind of operations within the industry, or also within the local geographical risks, then maybe we can do it well. So involving communities and providing them adequate education and awareness for risk aversion will be helpful. So communities, they should have actually a good collaboration, and all industries should actually invite them and involve them within their DM plans, that what are they doing and how the communities can protect and keep themselves safer in disaster situations, uh, so that no they are least affected. For example, I tell you one example. In case of Bhopal gas tragedy, the people are not well aware that if they will run in the direction opposite to the wind, then they will have the less gas exposure, or they keep a wet cloth on their mouth, so they will not get affected. So these things were known to the people working in the industry, but not to the local communities. So small, simple steps which can be taken to prevent the impacts of the hazardous impacts of those industries within a particular geographical locality can help people. So communities have to be involved, and communities should be educated and made aware and sensitized about it well. Sometimes even communities' activities can cause disasters, being ignorant and unaware of the disaster situations. Raju, you are not audible.
Sorry for that, sir. Actually, sir, there are 3-4 questions that has been raised regarding the DM plan in oil and in this sector, petroleum sector. So they are asking, sir, is there any national plan for this petroleum section, or they want to get ideas in this? Sir?
It's a good question, because there is a proverb saying failing to plan means planning to fail. So one has to prepare plans at all levels. Local level plans up to the national level plans are required. That's why I read out the sections 36 and 37 of chapter 5 of the disaster management act specifically. There are 11 chapters in fact, and 79 sections in the disaster management act. But I just read 2 sections out of that, just to be very specific and focused on the industry, ministry, and the departments. So these industries at their levels, they should have their own corporate plans, but that plans should be integrated with disaster management plan and with their ministry's plans, so that ministry's plans are ultimately approved by NDMA. So that can be integrated with national disaster management plan. So these plans at all levels are very much required and integrated and linked with each other. You are not audible, please.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation. And there is one suggestion also, sir, from Tushar, that NIDM and ONGC should come up with a pocket diary or some type of pamphlets of chemical and its antidote, so that it could be used for off-site planning and other things. This point is well taken. We will look into that. So, sir, with this, sir, now thank you, sir, for your presentation. Now I will request Dr. Harjeet Kaur for the next presentation. Dr. Harjeet Kaur is working as a young professional in National Institute of Disaster Management, India. She is currently working in Coastal Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience Center in GMR division of NIDM. Prior to this, she was working in landslide risk management in Gangtok, Sikkim. Dr. Harjeet Kaur has published over 20 research publications in reputed international journals. She is also a recipient of a number of awards, fellowships, and professional recognition, such as Young Scientist Award, Gold Medalist in UG and PG Studies, Inspire Fellowships, etc. So with these words, I would like to pass on the stage to Dr. Harjeet Kaur. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Raju, for briefing my introduction. Can you give me the share content so that I can share my PPT? Okay. Presentation, I would like to share coronavirus prevention measures, as this is our mandate and this is my duty. Clean your hand, wash your hand with proper water and soap. Avoid to your sensitive areas like eyes, nose and mouth. Keep social distancing and जरूरी और mask है जरूरी. So this is the, and now today we are going to discuss about the HVCR, that is hazard, vulnerability, C for capacity, and R stand for risk. The objective of presentation is to recognize the risk and hazard at your working area, at your home and your surrounding, to evaluate different levels of risk, and to work as a team to prepare the materials that demonstrate during the lecture. And now, disaster. According to the UNDP definition, it is a serious disruption of functioning of the society causing. Am I audible, Mr. Raju?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Oh. Yeah. What is disaster? According to the UN definition, it is serious disruption of the functioning of the society causing widespread human, material or environmental losses which exceed the ability of the affected society to cope using only its own resources. Then what is hazard? This is a rare or an extreme natural or human-made event that threatens to adversely affect human life, property or activity to extent of causing a disaster. So in for HSE department, there are a different type of hazard that I have found through the research papers, like physical hazard, chemical hazards, biological hazards, and psychological hazards. Physical hazards are like noise and vibration that can both independently pose significant health risk. Example from drill floor, shaker, generators, compressor, and the mixers. The typical approach where noise cannot be mitigated at source or via engineering controls has been to establish noise control zones requiring the use of hearing protection based on the area noise measurement. And there are various form of radiation and thermal extremes are also relatively common on offshore platforms. Exposure to extreme heat and direct sunlight in tropical areas and to extreme cold in high latitude can become significant sources of health risk dependent on the geographical region of the world. And next is the chemical hazards. Like benzene is the natural component of crude oil and natural gases, and a few studies have reported that on the benzene exposure, substances such as hydrogen sulfides are usually well controlled, but it has a carcinogenic effects. And in the past, the composition of the drilling mud had considerable toxicity for both the human and the environment. Many epidemiological studies of workers in the petroleum industries have been conducted to help address whether there is an excess of mortality from the cancers, or the vast majority of these have been limited to oil refinery, petroleum workers exposure level to benzene, toluene, xylene, and the others chemical based on the personal air monitoring data, or generally regarded as low during the regular activities, and the higher exposure, usually less than a full shift duration, may be encountered during the maintenance task. And example like when containment is broken or vessel need to be entered for cleaning. There has also been a speculation that thermal exposure during early years of operation could be high, but such exposure has not been routinely assessed. Then there is a biological hazard type in the petroleum sector, like there is a food poisoning outbreak, are typical manifestation of the biological hazard in the offshore workplace. Airborne diseases can spread rapidly through ventilation system on offshore installation because accommodation is pressurized and living space is usually at a premium. And the last one is the psychological hazard. These hazards are different from other occupational hazards. The level of stress within an organization varies both rapidly and significantly over the time. There is some evidence that stress in an organization or a population is normal and often transient, and currently available data does not directly measure stress, while the interpretation is difficult and often counter. Next is this very good picture which defines disaster, hazard, vulnerability and capacity in one single frame, because we are not able to learn or remember the definitions. So by this picture we can easily identify vulnerability and disaster. In this picture you can see that a person is vulnerable due to shock, and this is lock. But when it fall down and kill the person, it become a disaster. So we should via this image. So now what is vulnerability? According to the definition, it is the to a given element at risk resulting from the occurrences of a natural phenomena of a given magnitude and expressed on the scale from. Now from this picture we can easily understand what is vulnerability, how we can assess vulnerability. With two simple questions we can assess the vulnerability. First is who are at risk and what is at risk. So who are at risk is the vulnerable population, and what is at risk is our infrastructure. So first we have to identify the hazard for our working place, and then for that particular, after the hazard identification we have to identify the vulnerability. So just take an example of an area like flood prone area, or you can take a landslide prone area or the mountain area that is vulnerable with a different hazards like snow avalanches, landslide, earthquake. So who are vulnerable? First, the woman, the pregnant lady, and the widows, old aged people, children, handicapped people, mentally challenged people, and poor people living at the vulnerable areas. I have to take the animals. Now, vulnerable infrastructure. For vulnerable infrastructure, we have like for the flood area, the kacha houses or the low-lying areas are vulnerable due to the flood. Weak crops, horticulture, drinking water resources, road lines, transportations, these infrastructure were vulnerable due to flood. Now, specific risk. After specific risks means after the identification of hazard and vulnerability, the expected degree of losses due to a particular natural phenomena, it may be expressed by the product of hazard multiplied by vulnerability, as I have told you earlier. So by this formula, we can identify the specific risk for our sector. Then element at risk. This is a very beautiful picture. Identify element at risk. Just taken an example. This is a picture of a harbor area near to a coastal sea. So first you can see here the airport is there, okay, and this portion is there is a urbanization, population's residential area, population is living there. There is this green patches are the agriculture field land. This is the satellite imagery. Via this we can identify if there is cyclone happen, so who are vulnerable. Okay, so first the population is vulnerable to cyclone, and in infrastructure we can take the airport, the road line and the rail lines, buildings, schools. These are vulnerable due to the cyclone. Via this satellite imagery, we can easily identify the element at risk. For the different disaster, we can take the satellite imagery and we can assess the element at risk for the different disaster. So after all this, we have to calculate the total risk. So total risk is the expected number of lives lost, person injured, damage to the property or disruption of the economic activity due to a particular natural phenomena, and is therefore the product of the specific risk and the element at risk. So total risk is the element at risk multiplied by hazard and to vulnerability. How to calculate risk? As I have already told you that hazard is we have to find out the particular hazards. It may be natural, it may be anthropogenic, it may be chemical hazard. So in different sector there are different type of hazards. So first we find out the hazard for a particular area. Then we have to find out the vulnerability for different sector, and after vulnerability we have to find out the element at risk, and after calculating all the hazard, vulnerability and element at risk, we will get the total risk. Now capacity. What is capacity? Capacity is the ability of coping and responding to reduce the losses due to the disaster. Now, what is response? These are some terminology that evolved in the disaster management. So, response, the provision of emergency services and public assistance during or immediately after a disaster in order to save life, reduce health impact, ensure public safety, and meet the basic needs people affected during the disaster. So, recovery is the improvement where appropriate of facilities, livelihoods, and living conditions of the disaster affected communities, including efforts to reduce the disaster risk factor, that is build back better. This is a very famous slogan of Sendai framework, number 4 priority. So we have to build back better to fight against the disaster. Yes. Preparedness to cope with the disaster through knowledge sharing, capacity development by the government, professional responses, recovery, or the multi-sectoral agencies and the individual to effectively anticipate and respond and recover from the impact of the hazards. And, how we can analysis HVCR. As we know that H stand for hazard, V is vulnerability, C is capacity, and R is risk. So how we can identify a HVCR analysis? Just suppose we are first what we have to do, visual representation of important information about the community or your workplace. If we taking an example of my work area, as I am living in Delhi. So first we have to identify, as I'm living in quake prone area. So visual representation is very much important, like my building is RCC building or the infrastructures, fire alarms are working. So we have to follow all the precautions measure. Then walking systematically in the community or you're in work area and identify the danger zone or the vulnerable areas, and we have to find out the evacuation site, local resources used during the emergencies and human activities contributing to vulnerability, etc. So these are three basic steps to find out the HVCR analysis. Then first, what we have, if we are working in workplace, we have to do first, we have to prepare it, and we have discussions on a particular disaster, because every person have their own perception and view angle. So we have to discuss with our partners, and then we have to find out the observation. We have to take the interviews of the community, or you can say the workers, and we have to prepare the questionnaires and what secondary data is needed for the HVCR analysis. These are basic steps. Suppose we are taking example of a flood or drought. In our group exercise, first what we have to identify, if we have identified the hazards like a flood or a drought, landslide, earthquake, so what is at high risk and why? We have to find out these reasons through our questionnaires. So this is a very much important thing. And way forward for my presentation is to promote the multi-sectoral coordination mechanism that bring together all local agencies and organizations, can provide a central focus for cross-agency cooperation to reduce the health risks and consequences of emergencies and disasters. We have to develop systematic approaches for handling disaster risk reduction, and is need to advancement in science and technology to further strengthen HVCR analysis. So thank you very much. This is all about the HVCR.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation on HVCR. So exercises in the end regarding HVCR. So we'll discuss this in later also. So ma'am, just since we're running short of time, I have just one question for you. So the question is, how recent advances in science and technology play a role in HVCR, or how they are incorporated in HVCR?
Thank you, Raju. It's a very good question. It may be observed that advancement in information technology in the form of internet, GIS, remote sensing, satellite communication, etc., can help a deal in planning and implementation of hazard reduction. For maximum benefit, new technologies for public communication should be made use, and natural disaster mitigation messages should be conveyed through these measures. And GIS, that is Geoinformation System, can improve the quality and power of analysis of natural hazard assessment as well as the chemical hazard, and guide the development activities and assist the planners in the selection of mitigation measures and in the implementation of emergency preparedness and response action. And whereas the remote sensing, on the other hand, as a tool, can very effectively identification of hazardous areas, monitor the planet for its changes on the real-time basis, and give the early warning to many impending disaster. Communication satellite have become vital for providing emergency communication and timely relief measures. And I think awareness and training in information technology in much greater measure required to develop the human resources, particularly in the developing countries, who are chronically suffer from the natural disaster, and therefore without science and technology and their blending with other disciplines, there can be no world safer from the natural disaster. So thanks to science and technology, we already know much about the natural hazards and about the ways and means to avoid or reduce many of their effects. So I think this will satisfy the participant.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, we could have taken some more questions, but because due to time constraint, I will restrict myself to one question. So now for our last presentation of today's gathering, we have Mr. Anand Rai, Head Training Division, IPSHEM ONGC, who will be highlighting us on inclusion of DM training by ONGC for disaster risk reduction and resilience. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, just a moment. Share my screen. Upload करना है ना? आगे आइए. Is it visible? This presentation is visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Okay. Just a minute. What the video? My video is coming?
No, sir, your video is off, sir. You have to turn on your camera, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now it is
first
okay,
of all, yeah, no, it's okay. I think it is coming. Very good afternoon to all of you. Respected Major General N.K. Bindra Saab, Sri V.V. Sharma, Sri Atul Garg, EDHOI, dignitaries, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. My presentation is very specific in nature, that I will be talking about certain trainings which are required to be incorporated in our curriculum in ONGC in order to provide awareness as well as expertise in the field of disaster risk reduction and resilience. Now, to emphasize this point, as we know that in the Disaster Management Act 2005 itself, a lot of points were given, and as you know, this was a paradigm shift from a relief-centric approach to a proactive regime. The very nature of this act was that it talked about activities which need to be taken in advance in order to reduce the recurrence as well as the impact of the consequences that occurs because of any disaster. And the most important point in view of this is the mitigation, then the prevention. In the mitigation part, if you see, the most important thing you can here see is at the point related point number 4, it is preparedness and capacity development in all spheres. Unless and until people are not made capable of handling different kind of scenarios, no plan can ever be effective. So, how the capacity can be developed? There are different methodologies for this, and the most important of it is the training. As we see, disaster management cycle here starts from mitigation, preparedness. If disaster happens, then response, recovery, and development. And this cycle keep on going. The primary goal is emergency response is to protect the health and safety of the emergency responders, public and private property, environment, and minimize the disruption of community activities. Sources of the community include trained personnel. Again, the question comes whether our people are really trained to handle those substance situations or not. Most of the time, it is found that a number of is a disaster, the common factor that comes to the fore is that either the personals were not aware of the situations, were not aware of the technologies, not aware of the plans that was required to be executed, or sometimes, and in most of the cases, it is even found people were not aware about the responsibilities, the individual roles that is required to be played in case of any emergency or handling of disaster scenario. So, as you see, the preparedness is best thought of as a process. It is a continuing sequence of analysis, plan development, acquisition of individual and team performance, and skills achieved through training, drills, exercises, and evaluation. So again, with respect to the preparedness, most important thing that is required at the ground level is the training, followed by the drills and exercises and subsequent evaluation, whether this has been effective or not. When we talk of ONGC operations, which deals with exploration and exploitation of hydrocarbons in the country, and now we have become a multinational also with our OVL, ONGC Villages Limited Wing, operating in more than 18 countries now. Now, the major risks that we face in our operation are the following. First and foremost is the hydrocarbon itself, which is a highly flammable nature. Then the marine environment, people working in oil industry, working offshore also, which itself poses a hazard. The toxic gases, we are exposed to very high level of exposure of hydrogen sulfide gas, which comes along with the oil in certain regions of our field. Then our air operations, most of our offshore operations are carried out with the help of choppers, helicopters. The ground logistics, heavy load handling, weather, marine operation, pressure is a big component of the hazards. Number of equipments are there which work on high pressure, working on height, public interference, and people itself. Sometimes it leads to some problem and related risk with the ONGC operation. In order to combat these things, these emergencies, we have already a plan, well-structured plan in place. Now, for the handling of emergency and disaster, we have three-layered approach in our organization, which is well documented and validated as well. The first part is the documented plan for emergency and disaster management, what we call ERP, Emergency Response Plan. The Government of India constituted, for the offshore operation, Government of India constituted Offshore Security Coordination Committee headed by DG Coast Guard for our offshore operations. We have documented plan for emergency and disaster management. Then Regional Contingency Plan, that is RCP, comprising of Indian Navy, Coast Guard, Indian Air Force, and other central and state agencies. Tie up with Goods and Goods International Blowout Control Agency and dedicated crisis management teams. These are the infrastructure in the form of organizational framework that is available in ONGC to handle the scenario related to the disasters, major disasters that is taking place. So for the offshore, this slide is basically I'm showing you for the offshore where we have all these things in place. Suppose in case any disaster emergency situation turns into a disaster. So in that case, all these organizations will come into play and they will execute their plans, which is already very well documented. Then I'm showing you the emergency response hierarchy in our organization. First of all, at the bottom, we have emergency response plan specific to the site, to the working place where the actual work is being carried out. We have emergency response plans from the site. Then we have regional contingency plan. Then corporate DMP, regional contingency plan in the form that it is at the asset level or basin level, at a big unit level, you can say. And then we have a corporate disaster management plan. Then we have a CMP, MOPNG, Government of India, then National Disaster Management Plan. With respect to overall view of the preparedness and response, 4 parts. First is the installation is specific emergency response plan, what we call level 1 plan. This deals with emergency situation which is controllable with the help of resources available at site and where only site personnel are involved. That is a situation which can be very well handled at the site specific level. For example, we have oil rigs, drilling rigs, we have oil installations. So at a single installation, say for example, some emergency situation occurs. So if it can be controlled with the resources available at that installation level itself, so then it categorized in installation specific ERP. These documents are very well documented. Second is asset level on-site disaster management plan, what we call level 2, emergency which can be controlled with resources available with assets. Then third is corporate disaster management plan. For level 3A agency, when intervention at corporate and national level is required. And off-site DMP for level 3B emergency, which required mobilization of resources through local administration, mutual agencies, and state and central government. Please remember that all these plans here, they are in line with National Disaster Management Plan of Government of India. We are in line with our Disaster Management Act 2005 and as per the National Disaster Management Plan of Government of India. So in line with all, we have our corporate disaster management plan, then asset management plan, and even the site specific plan are in accordance with those guidelines. For fighting the oil spill, which is another major challenge in the oil industry, which is associated with our work operation itself. When there is a big blowout, it is always associated with the spill of oil, particularly in the offshore. We have one oil spill management capability, spills up to 700 metric ton. We are capable of fighting at our own level in ONGC to combat spills which are more than 7,700 metric ton up to 10,000 metric ton. 10,000 ton, sorry. We have a metric ton. We have Tier 2 oil spill contingency plan, which is done with the help of Coast Guard, and then we have Tier 3, which is more than 10,000 metric ton, for which we are taking help from OSRL, Oil Spill Response Limited, United Kingdom. We have a tie with them. Then active participation of annual national pollution rates under the chairmanship of DG Coast Guard. Now coming to the point, which is most relevant for this presentation now. What type of training at present we are providing? These were the facilities I have discussed with you, which are in place in ONGC to handle disaster scenarios and major emergency scenarios. Now, what are the trainings that we are providing? Because as we have seen on earlier slides, the training and skill development is the most important factor for the capacity building of the personnel to fight emergency scenario and disaster scenarios. So in ONGC already, we have training programs with respect to blowout control contingencies, disaster management for business continuity management team members, BCMT. This is a particular course which is given to our data repository centers people who are handling those data in the form of our servers are continuously around the clock saving the important data, and for the disaster, if it at all happens in those centers, then what measures are required to be taken. So that is a dedicated training for them. And training on oil spill response preparedness for IMO level 1 by Coast Guard. This training is being imparted by Coast Guard Mumbai. Then for the IMO level 2 and 3, we have a tie with OSRL UK, and the training are provided to the offshore personnel who are working in offshore at different level, the managerial level and the top level. So these 2 and 3 level programs are for that purpose. Then we have a program which is conducted by one of our academies, ONGC Academy also, that is emergency response team, regional contingency plan, fire and life safety training. So broadly speaking, these training programs are there in place for providing knowledge and skill to our manpower working in ONGC. However, with NIDM, the in very effective manner. And these include training on disaster risk reduction and resilience, or specific to our operations, ENP operations, training on on-site specific ERP. As I had discussed, we have emergency response plan. Definitely, we have structured emergency response plan. But as far as the training part is concerned, we don't have very structured training program specific to this. So this is a very gray area, I should say. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Oh, okay. So the training on site specific emergency response plan, this is very well required. And what we feel that we should have a uniform training on ERP for our installations, site specific emergency response plan training program with respect to both skill development and awareness. Then training on off-site disaster management plan. This is another part, as we have seen that for the asset level, we have a disaster management plan, but we need to have a dedicated training program for the people who are handling this as a responsible person. According to the roles and responsibility that has been given to them, we have to have a training program in place. Training and again on corporate DMP. Just I have talked before on this. Then training on onshore oil spill preparedness and response management. We have been providing this training with the help of Coast Guard mobile. However, with the help of NIDM and the expertise that you people are having, we can further restructure this program and give it a good shape in order to have the best practices available in the world. Then the program that we are presently conducting with the help of outside agency, that is of Oil Spill Response Limited, OSRL UK, that is level 2 and level 3. I hope we can do it at our own level in India itself, as per our PM's vision. This program can be conducted with the help of NIDM again. However, it will take a little bit of effort and design and development, but it can be conducted, and this will be a great achievement for all of us if such kind of trainings are conducted in India itself. Then we have another gray area which required to be focused is the training on fire disaster in high-rise buildings. Again, this is a major cause of disaster these days. A lot of incidents are coming where the high-rise building fires are taking place in metro cities, and in ONGC also we have a number of multi-story building in our colonies, in our offices, and at our metro cities also. So in case of fire takes place, so I think this is a very good area. We can work together and develop some training program. Now, basically, the purpose of this initiative is that to enhance the capability of ONGC personnel to plan for risk reduction, preparedness, response, mitigation for disaster, so as to reduce human sufferings, morbidity, mortality that occur from such incident. Now, this specific objective is very important when we design this training program. The first objective from ONGC is that to create awareness about the potential emergency scenarios and enhance the capability of risk reduction, risk mitigation, preparedness for disaster, then enable the personnel to upgrade the existing emergency and disaster management plan at site-specific level, asset level and corporate level, and make it more effective as per the best national and international practices. Once the people will be giving training, the training required to be designed on these lines, that it will not only create awareness on the one side, but it will be people capable of thinking, designing, developing an excellent document in the form of emergency response plan and disaster management plan. The existing plan that is there, of course, it can be very well upgraded with the latest technologies, necessary knowledge inputs with the help of NIDM, and we can bring it to a level which matches with the international standard and best practices, and then enhance the capability of personnel to effectively execute the emergency and disaster management plan in time of real crisis. Here, I want to focus the training program maybe in two parts. One can be theoretical part, which will be dealing with all those and different executed. And the other part is the practical part, that is the mock drills. How effectively, with the help of these plans, the mock drills are being conducted. And basically the evaluation of this effectiveness of these training programs, which can be a parameter for the performance measurement for these training programs, is that the response time that we usually take in our mock drills, and the way that the mock drill is executed by the people who are responding to the different emergency and disaster scenarios during mock drills, these may be observed by independent observer and can effectively be transformed into a grading system, and we can effectively assess the effectiveness of the training program. So there has to be correlation with respect to the theory as well as with the practical. So that kind of module probably will be very helpful for execution of such kind of training program and to give the best of its output. Broad methodology. This is what we can think of. This is a thing we can discuss in detail subsequently. If we agree to that, if we are able to, or we agree upon those points for conducting this training program on the with the help of NIDM. This is what I have thought of a little bit. This is from my own mind, that we can develop the course content of the training modules depending on the emergency scenarios of E&P industry, very specific to the E&P industry scenarios. Develop the course content, course material, and standardize PowerPoint presentation for presentation, PPTs, slides, identification of domain expert faculty for the training programs, conduct a pilot training program, analyze the feedbacks. Depending on the feedback, modify the training programs if required. If the 95% of the feedback rating is excellent, the training will be validated. So this is the broad methodology that we are following in ONGC, because ONGC is certified for all the 3 international standards with respect to quality, that is ISO 9001 2015, then ISO 14000 2015, 14001 2015, and then ISO 45001 2018. So we have to follow structural procedures for carrying out any kind of job, and this is as per the requirement of these standards. And according to these standards, this is the methodology for the design and development of our training programs. So, however, this can be further detailed and can be worked out with your help, with the NIDM and the feedback from the people and from our personals, so that the objective and the ultimate aim is that we have to come out with a training module on the disaster management, which I feel will not be only specified to ONGC activities only, but it can be pan-India, including all operations of E&P activities of different oil companies also, and it can be standardized. And I hope this kind of measure probably will be highly helpful in coming out with a uniform and standardized course material on disaster risk reduction, resilience, and disaster management. So with this, I thank you very much. Wear mask, wash hand, keep distance, stay safe. Thank you very much. Over to ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful presentation, and rightly underlining the need to focus on promotion of efficient, safe, and resilient communication environment for emergencies and disaster situation, and also highlighting the need for better linkage, coordination, and cooperation. So there are few questions, sir, that the participant has raised. So, the first question is, sir, does India has latest efficient technology in petroleum sector to reduce or face the disaster scenario?
Yes, we have, as we have mentioned, that we have been in this business for more than 50 years now, and ONGC has developed this capability that we are in a position to fight any sort of disaster related to exploration of oil and production of oil to a very great extent. However, there is always scope for improvement. I don't say that we have achieved the international level and expertise which are prevalent in all the developed countries as such. No, we have to scale much more heights in days to come. However, as I have said, we have a well-structured disaster management plan in place. We have got excellent equipment as far as the, and seeing that this recently there's a blog in Assam, and how these people from ONGC crisis management went there, they contributed their best, and at a number of places we have been able to dodge the fire in a very structured manner and in a methodical way. So we have adequate infrastructure as on date, but excellence is something which can always be achieved. Thank you. Huh? You are mute. You are mute. Please unmute.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So one more question is, sir, from Rajiv Kumar. The question is, why does it take a very long time, sometimes months, to put off an oil well fire?
Yeah, very interesting question, particularly for a oil man. See, oil industry and technology is very, very complex. It is not simple as it seems that oil is coming to the surface in a self-flow manner. No, it's a very, very complicated thing. Why it happens like this? Once the situation goes out of control and emergency turns into disaster, where outside help is required and we are not able to control it our own self, what happens? It becomes so complicated. It becomes so complicated technologically that you have to apply various types of technology, various kinds of inputs and thought process. And as you know, we are working with nature. Nature can't be predicted. Please remember, we can have a little bit of control, but nature is supreme. It manifests in different forms. Challenges are coming from different forms. That is the reason. Simple example I will tell you. If the pressure is very high, if the very high pressure is coming from the earth in the form of oil and gas, and we have to extinguish the fire, simple situation you take, it's a challenging task. There is a huge fire, temperature is more than 3000 degrees Celsius. How you will approach the site first? It becomes very difficult. Even the highest rated pump, you cannot approach near to the fireplace itself because tremendous heat is generated. Now, water is required, huge quantity of water is required for the dousing of fire. Now, water has to be arranged. It's not liters. It has to be millions of liters. You can think of that way. Then resources has to be there. Then there are technologies for cutting off the Christmas tree or the equipment. Then sometimes even these technology fail. We have to drill a relief well. You know, for drilling a well, 30 days, 40 days, 50 days even. Even if you go very fast because you have to drill depending on the depth of the well. If the well is 3000 meter deep, in which the fire has taken place. So you have to drill a parallel well of 3000 meters. You understand how long it takes for drilling a well in such kind of adverse situation. All these things make it, and I'm telling you, sometimes there is underground blowout. It's not a single thing gas is coming. It manifests in different forms. Different challenges will come. Gas will be spread to nearby area in the villages. Now you have to fight that. That's why I told. In E&P industry, we have to have a very, very good, excellent, I should say, disaster reduction and disaster management plan in place, so that we can forecast, we can be prepared how best we can fight the situations. Because every day is a learning day in oil industry. Even if you got 10 or 20 numbers of these fires or emergency disasters, you can't say that you will be very, very successful next day. No. Every day is a new day in oil industry. We are facing new type of challenges, learning from the past mistakes, improving ourselves. Please keep on learning and developing simultaneously. So that's why it's a big challenge. Good question. Thank you very much.
So there are a few more questions, sir, that participant has raised.
Yes.
So there is one more question, sir. Is there any international cooperation of India with other countries, like globally, which are excelling in disaster management in oil and natural gas sector?
Yeah,
is there any international cooperation?
Yes, sir. As I mentioned here, in offshore area, where more than 70% or right now 80% you can say of oil is coming for the domestic production side. We have a tie with OSRL, Oil Spill Response Limited. It is UK-based organization. It caters to the emergency disaster scenarios of oil spill to the level 2, IMO level 2 and IMO level 3. That is more than 7 ton to MT. So this is called level 2, and more than 10,000 MT and above, it is level 3. So we have a tie, and these organizations are worldwide organizations. They are excellent. They are providing this facility at a global level to all the people. Then we have other organizations, Boots and Coots are there. With Boots and Coots, these are for fighting the blowout situations. They are the expert. So we have tie-up with Boots and Coots also. We are calling them time and again in case of emergency. So these agencies are there with ONGC always. But the point is that why our organization in India can't match with those organizations? The capability building and the focus has to be like this. We need to prepare our people in line with how long we can be dependent on those people. We have to have our own capability and capacity in order to fight such kind of situations. But as rightly said, we have a mechanism in place for international cooperation and assistance from all these well-being measures and the field of disaster management. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And one more question is from Sir Sujata. Question is, sir, how oil spillage can be controlled and how to safeguard marine ecosystem due to that? What are the new innovations that is required or something that is coming up?
As you know, what we say, there are 4 R's, what we call. First is that you have to reduce the thing, reuse and recycle. These are the things. But before that, I should say, eliminate the hazard itself. So if we talk of oil spill, which is a big challenge for the oil industry, we should first off think that the measures should be in place that there should not be any oil spill at any point at all. First of all, we have to think of that. Now, why disaster oil spill takes place? Because there are process upsets. The things we were designed, for example, there is a pipeline and oil is flowing through that. Now, it's a normal thing, oil will keep on flowing. But why the leakage will take place? Leakage takes place because there may be corrosion, there may be leakage through the pipelines, or bursting of the pipelines. There are certain reasons. Now, we have to plan at the what we call a hazard or political design level itself. We have to find the risk that is associated, and accordingly, we have to take the measure. So the design aspect is there. First of all, we have to control the design aspect of the thing. Then we have to have procedure for the monitoring. So these are certain tools at the prevention level. Disaster, you can say reduction level, disaster reduction level. Now, in case the oil spill takes place, because there is always a residual risk, we can't eliminate the risk potentials 100%. There is always an act of God, you can say. So if the residual risk results into some disaster or accident, and there is an oil spill, there are methods in place that the impact can be reduced. We have oil booms through which we contain the oil. We have oil skimmers which work in lifting the oil from the surface of the sea, and they are very effective, very effective. Then we have dispersants, chemical dispersants. We disperse the big droplets of oil into very small droplets, and it mixes with the water, and ultimately the biodegradation takes place and it vanishes. So then we have ultimate sort of methodologies are there, which sometimes lead to like burning also, sometimes in limited area, but that is not very advisable, but sometimes it also takes place. So there are ways and means through which the oil spill takes place. It can be contained and it can be removed. But please remember, these are the methods for the containment of the oil spill. But does not mean the residual effect will not be there. Even if all the latest technology you put in place, latest technologies are there in the form of, we have got very good skimmers in place, huge skimmers whose success rates are very, very high. They almost dry up the sea surface, which is contaminated with oil. And then we have very good booms. Then we have got excellent dispersant, chemical dispersant in place now these days, which are very effective. So these are certain breakthrough in the field of oil spill response management. But please remember, you can't remove oil 100%, because once the emulsification takes place in the seawater, that portion remains there. Due to sunlight and all that, 25% of oil evaporates, rest remains in the water. That is the reason we still get tar balls. You will be surprised to know that back in 2010, when that Macando and that accident had taken place in the Gulf of Mexico, still the tar balls are found near the coast area. In India also, we have instances when in Goa beaches, we had seen the tar balls. So still, technology are, yes, methodologies are there, but it will not make you free from the total risk of oil spill. No, still we don't have any methodology in place. So the best thing is that we have to have technology, we have to have procedure, we have to have design first in place so that we should not face any oil spill in our country. Thank you very much. And the fourth question, yes,
thank you
it
very
causes
much.
huge impact on the environment, huge impact. Not only the animals, birds, even the benthos, in the small microorganisms, they are destroyed. In the phytoplankton, which is the basic element of food chain in the seawater, in the water itself, they are destroyed because of the contamination. The ppm level, I should say, it destroys, it is highly dangerous to the whole ecosystem. So yes, it's had a very drastic effect on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation and equally interesting and in the question answer session. So actually there are several questions, but due to time constraints, sir, we will restrict ourselves to this much, sir. Thank you once again, sir, for joining us.
Okay. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. So now we have come to the end of the technical session, but before I conclude today's session, there is one more section of today's training program is the home assignment or the group assessment. So for that part, today we will be sharing one template for the assignment in group also, and once we have the attendance list that is automatically generated by Cisco WebEx. So once we have your email ID, we will be sending you the assignment in your email ID also. So basically, let me just discuss or give you a brief idea of what is the assignment about today is. So as discussed by Dr. Harjeet Kaur, so the assignment will be to find out the hazard and vulnerability. So as discussed, so like what you have to do is considering your area, your living area, just identify the type of hazards that is there in your area. Suppose if you are living in hilly areas, what are the different hazards that could occur there? Whether it is the landslide, whether it is the earthquake. So you just need to highlight what kind of hazard can occur in your area, and you have to identify the name of the areas, like whether it is the hill area or the Indo-Gangetic plain or the coastal areas or the urban areas or the rural areas or any other. So you find out the water and climate related disasters such as flood, cyclone. Is it possible that could affect your area? So what you need to do is you just need to find out the different hazard that could probably affect your area, and also just try to highlight whether the likelihood of occurrence of such hazard is very high, moderate, or low. You just have to identify the hazard. And you have to try to identify the intensity, like whether the occurrence is chances of occurrence is low or moderate or high or very high. And also you can identify the once if that hazard occur in your area. So what are the different vulnerabilities? Whether it will affect the physical vulnerability, what are the physical structure like the buildings? Whether it will affect the social vulnerability. The social, like Dr. Harjeet Kaur mentioned, the social vulnerability or the economic vulnerability. What are the different vulnerabilities that will occur due to that hazard? So this will be your assignment for today. So that will be in offline. You don't need to join the meeting again. This meeting you have to join again tomorrow using the same link. So you don't need to join again. This is an offline assignment. So you just have to identify the hazard and the vulnerability. And we will be sharing the detailed template for that, so that it will be more easy for you to understand how to go on with the assignment. And in the end, I will, after the ending of this technical session, I would like to propose the vote of thanks to end today's session. So I am very thankful to extend my thanks to Sri GVV Sharma, IAS, Member Secretary NDMA, for accepting our request and marking his gracious presence in the program. Also, I would like to express my gratitude to Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, ED NIDM, for providing innovative and encouraging environment in NIDM in all our future endeavors also. And we are also grateful to Shri Atul Garg, ED, Head, IPSHEM ONGC, and also Alok Kumar, IPSHEM ONGC, for their presence and also for their enormous cooperation and support in organizing of this, training program. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Professor Surya Prakash, Head, GMR Division, NIDM, Mr. NN Rai, Head, Training Division, IPSHEM ONGC, and Dr. Harjeet Kaur for their presence in the technical session to enlighten our participant with their knowledge and experience. I must convey my thanks to our participant also. Without them, this program wouldn't be possible. For joining us in today's session, hope you have some key takeaways point to carry on from here. And I must mention my thanks to my GMR division also, Mr. Anil Kathet, Dr. Harjeet Kaur, and our IT team also, Mr. Balaji, Shovit, and Gaurav, for their cooperation in making this event successful. For the participant, let me inform few points, like there is no feedback link for today. The feedback link will be shared on the last day of the training program. And regarding attendance, you don't need to worry about your attendance. Your attendance is automatically recorded in the Cisco WebEx platform. And to join us tomorrow for the training program, this same link will be used to join the training program. So regarding all the assignments, we will share the template with you. With that, I call this meeting an end for today. So hope to see you all tomorrow at same time. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we will be joined by the various speakers who are working in this field from various backgrounds. So it will be a very interesting day for tomorrow. So hope we all will meet here again. Thank you very much.